Joseph's Donkey by Anthony DeStefano. Illustrated by Juliana Kolosova. Read by the author. Joseph was a carpenter who lived in Galilee, in a town called Nazareth, a short way from the sea. Honest, kind, and always fair, he hardly said a word. Work and prayer and silence were the things that he preferred. But Joseph's cart was filled with wood, just loaded to the brim. What he needed was a donkey, big and strong like him. So to the market Joseph went. He looked around and saw a dozen noisy donkeys shout, "Hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw!" But in the corner by himself, a quiet donkey stood, looking brave and strong and silent, like a donkey should. Joseph saw his noble face and loved him at first sight. He bought the donkey on the spot and rode him home that night. The donkey didn't disappoint. He did what he was told. He worked as much as Joseph, and his heart was good as gold. He knew that donkeys only live for 30 years or less. He didn't want to waste his time in idle laziness. And so he worked for several months, the best months of his life. But nothing matched the joy he felt when he met Joseph's wife. Mary was a perfect girl, graceful, pure, and sweet. When Joseph's donkey saw her smile, he knelt before her feet. Joseph took him to the side and said to him that day, "You must protect my wife should any danger come her way." The donkey nodded thoughtfully and made a silent vow. "Although I'm very meek and shy, I'll do my best somehow." Soon after this, the donkey learned the lady he adored was pregnant with a baby boy, Jesus Christ the Lord. Then from Rome came urgent news. A census was proclaimed. People had to travel to the towns from which they came. To Bethlehem the donkey went, with Mary on his back. Joseph walked in front of them to keep them all on track. They found a humble stable there, clean and dry and warm. With starlight shining down on them, the Son of God was born. But not far off, there lived a king whose jealous heart was filled with so much hatred for the babe, he tried to have him killed. The frightened family fled at once to find a place to hide. They stayed in Egypt several years until the bad king died. Arriving home at Nazareth, the four was safe at last. Joseph went to work again, and several more years passed. The donkey worked beside him too, hauling stones and wood, and bearing Jesus on his back throughout his childhood. Jesus loved the donkey so, he rode him every day to places he could be alone and close his eyes and pray. The donkey watched the child there, so holy and devout. He knew he had to be from God. Of that there was no doubt. When the boy was 12 years old, the family packed their things. They journeyed to Jerusalem, the ancient land of kings. Jesus rode upon his friend, and when no one could hear, he leaned down low and whispered this into the donkey's ear. "A different donkey years from now will take me here again, and I will suffer greatly then, but rise to life. Amen." This secret made the donkey sad, and tears rolled down his cheek. He didn't show the child, though, or even try to speak. They worshipped at the Temple Mount, a wondrous sight to see. Then they started traveling back with all their family. Jesus was among the crowd, or so they thought at first. But he was nowhere to be found, and Joseph feared the worst. Returning to Jerusalem in panic and despair, they searched 3 days but couldn't find the child anywhere. Just then the donkey's eyes grew wide, as if he'd seen a light. I know the place to look, he thought. I'm sure I must be right. Recalling all the times he watched the boy alone at prayer, he raced up to the Temple Mount and finally found him there. The boy was sitting in a group. The sun shone on his head. The elders of the temple were amazed by what he said. Although the donkey never spoke and hardly made a sound, he had to somehow tell his master Jesus had been found. Hee-haw, 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 he cried, till Joseph heard at last. He and Mary soon arrived before too long had passed. Where have you been? His parents asked, relieved but still upset. He answered, in my Father's house, or don't you know me yet? The 4 were glad to get back home, the donkey most of all. Days and months and years went by. The little boy grew tall. As Jesus grew, the donkey aged. He passed his 30th year. He lost his sight, his legs got lame. The end seemed drawing near. He tried to limp across the field where he had always run. He fell 3 times and realized then his walking days were done. He carried Jesus many years when Jesus was a child. Now Jesus carried him back home so he could rest a while. Jesus sighed and said to him, I know it's getting dark. You've finished your great mission, and on mine I'll soon embark. Then Mary rubbed the donkey's neck and kissed him on his head. She gave him something cold to drink and offered him some bread. Joseph sat by his old friend and whispered lovingly, I've been your master many years, but now I set you free. When you arrive at heaven's gate, please wait a while for me. I'm growing very old myself, and won't be long, you'll see. Then Jesus looked at him and said, My arms and hands take hold. O good and faithful servant, fear not the dark or cold. For in my Father's kingdom are fields of green and gold, with miles and miles to run in, and happiness untold. Just close your eyes now gently. Be faithful and be bold. Open them again now, and then, my friend, behold.